Hi, I'm Tim Ross from the BC chapter of the Society for Range Management. The BC chapter is sponsoring a series of videos on natural resource issues in our province. Today I'd like to introduce Amanda Miller. Amanda's going to tell you about how targeted grazing by cattle is being used to reduce fine fuels at the urban-rural interface.
Thanks, Tim. We're on the west side of the city of Cranbrook, right in the wildland-urban interface. In this project, we are using cattle to reduce fine fuel loading and continuity across our study site. So last year, we found there was about a 32% reduction in biomass, and that resulted in reduced fine fuels and reduced fire risk.
Is there anything you could tell us about the distribution of the cattle?
Well, the cattle were mostly laying in people's tulip beds in this division over here because we had some fencing related issues, but there was even distribution in this area where we have our research plots, but across other portions of the pasture there were some distribution issues that need to be addressed in the future.
The permittee tells me he had about 76 pairs out here. Were they mostly using this area?
I would say that they were primarily in this area and a couple of other primary range areas. Lots of the times cattle like to congregate around water and they don't want to travel too far away from it.
Where is the closest water to this site, Amanda?
Oh, Tim, I have no idea.
Well, I can tell you there's a couple of ponds down to the south about a kilometer and they are well used.
Oh, yeah.
But the cattle are traveling quite a bit and it's been harvested, so the road system is available for them.
Yeah, as you can tell, this site has been thinned, which reduces some of the overstory and canopy fire risks. But once you start thinning, then you open up the understory and then you get a flush of fine fuels. And so that's why you need to address those fine fuel issues, which is more volatile fuel type. You need to address it through some sort of mitigation practice, and in this case it's cattle.
Did you see any sort of change in the composition of the fine fuels? For example, did pine grass flourish more than bunch grasses?
Well, this was the first year of the program, so we haven't seen a shift in the species composition due to grazing. But the community as it is primarily pine grass with very little bunch grass available. And we're thinking that's probably just a function of it being a shaded overstory for so many years, where it transitioned into pine grass dominated plant communities.
Do you have any idea what year the ER treatment took place here?
I believe it was 2017.
I'm thinking you're about right, but I don't know for sure.
I'm pretty sure that's what I wrote in the reports, yeah.
Other than problems with cattle finding tulip beds to their liking, were there any other problems that you encountered on the site? For example, did recreationists leave your infrastructure alone?
Well, they did once we put up some signs on our cages, but the first time we came out to set up our intensive research sites, we did have a couple of cages stolen, and by a couple I mean all of our cages were stolen.
Excellent. It's amazing what will leave if it's not bolted down.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it was people who thought they were taking garbage away, but it wasn't garbage, it was scientific research tools.
So would you say that you learned anything other? For example, were elk and deer drawn to this area?
We did find a fair bit of elk use that was quantified through pellet counts, but it's really difficult to determine what percentage of use can be attributed to ungulates versus cattle. So that is difficult to parse out. But there was sign that ungulates were on and using the site.
So was forage production data collected once in the course of the season?
Yes, forage data was collected at the end of the grazing season once the cattle had been taken off of the site, and we have a control in these cages that tells us what the ungrazed biomass potential is, and then outside of the cages we have a paired site that indicates how much the grazed sites produce. And so we use that comparison to determine how much forage the cattle are utilizing and to figure out what their fuel reduction value is relative to not just biomass but also the height of grassy fuels.
Excellent. Is there any sort of summation comment you could make?
Well, I think in summary, it's important when you're doing ecosystem restoration work to not just think about the crown and the forested layers of the community, especially with regards to wildfire risk. You have to remember that these systems, although they did evolve with fire as a disturbance factor, you do need to be careful whenever you make a big ecosystem change and to know that there could be, such as on this site, a flush of fine fuels that can increase your potential fire risk and the volatility of fire.
Tim Ross here, and this is Amanda Miller, and we're talking about the targeted grazing program in the Cranbrook area. And thanks for listening, folks.